let's kind of go over types of forests. Again, you can find this guide on the Explore page. All you have to do is just type in types of forest guide and it will pop in there. So there are different types of forests. One, there are temperate rainforests. Because of the availability of water, there is an immense amount of biodiversity. So you notice that there is a lot of different types of trees inside of here. There's also jungles. Because of the constant heat and rainfall, jungles support extreme biodiversity and dense vegetation. Remember, water is the kind of key here. There's also a taiga. Because of long winters and poor soil, only hardy plants and wildlife survive here. There's also mangroves. Because of tides and saltwater, mangroves develop specialized roots and rich coastal ecosystems. There's also evergreen forests. Because of cold climates and steady rainfall, evergreen forests maintain year-round tree cover. 6. Coniferous. Because of cold and acidic soil, coniferous forests favor resilient trees and sparse undergrowth. There's also deciduous. Because of seasonal climates, deciduous forests shed leaves and support diverse plant and animal life. And then the last one, which is a little bit more on the fantasy side, is a petrified forest. Because of mineral-rich soil, ancient trees fossilize, creating stone forests. So if one of these sounds interesting to you, let me know. 1 through 8. Doesn't really matter which one we choose from. Even if it is a colder one, I don't mind if it's a taiga. It should just make it more interesting, and maybe we can come up with some lore to kind of explain that. Let me know in the chat which type of forest interests you the most. Whichever one comes up the most in the chat, that's the one that we'll make. So let's go ahead and make a mangrove next. And of course, when you're making a biome, because it's a mangrove, we're probably going to want to create that first contrast, which is land versus water. So what we'll do is we'll go over here. We'll go ahead and choose a water texture of some kind from our fantasy world. We'll go ahead and just type in water. Let's go ahead and use this more greenish type of water. I think that will look better. Let's go ahead and just fill up the entire thing with water here. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and choose a grass texture that we want to represent land. Let's go with, let's see here, because this is kind of a lighter blue color, why don't we go with a darker green color so it will contrast? Let me apply this real quick and just see how it is. That looks okay. Why don't we bring the brightness down just a little bit? That looks a little better. Okay, there we go. Now that we have that, that looks good. All right. And I'll set it up since we're putting it on this side. Let's go ahead and put the water on this side, or put the land on that side. So land right here. Like this. There we go. There's our land. We can add a little bit more water. There we go. And what I'll do to just make it more interesting is I'm going to create some S-curves like this so that it doesn't look too uniform. So by just creating that little curve like this, it makes it a little bit more interesting. Oopsie, wrong one. A little bit darker right here like this. There we go. That looks a little better. Let's go like that. There we go. Looks good. Now that you put that together, let's go ahead and throw a little bit of terrain down. So let's go ahead and remember, we're going to use cliffs. Some of this might get hidden, and that's okay, but we'll start with making some cliffs. And what we'll do is we'll have, when the closer you get to sea level, the less elevation, there's more elevation is going down towards sea level. So why don't we have the elevation going up the further we go away from this water right here. So we'll create the cliffs furthest away from the water. Like this. Let's go put one there. Put another one right there like this. One like that. That looks good. Let's go ahead and place a little island right here like this. There we go. All right. That looks good. Seems to be put together. Let's maybe change the scale. And we could just flip this. Actually, just flip it just like that. There we go. Just to make it a little bit different from the last one. There we go. That looks good. I can copy and paste this. I can make changes to it. I can go with my width like this and create another variant of it. Flip it again. There we go. Take this one, flip it again. There we go. Just to create different variations. Put one in that corner up there like that. That will have it overlap just a little bit. There we go. Okay. There's our elevation. Now we can go ahead and show some elevation changes by just taking that lighter version of that texture and just put it at the top. So I'll go and bring the brightness up just a little bit. There we go. And then I'll just go ahead and paint these sections right here a little bit lighter. There we go. And you can see the variation there. And that's also just to show that it's sloping down towards the ocean. Let's make a darker variant right here and put that darker variant going like this, kind of following in here like this. And this will create this illusion of a slope because it looks like it's a little bit darker, right? And then we'll add a little bit more here to make it even darker. And then again, to make it even darker. So remember this cool trick. If you want to create this sense of slope, it's about using contrast. Let's bring just a slightly darker variant just so that I can get my dark right along this slope here. There we go. And now you truly have this sense of gradient, a slope going high up and then going down the closer we get to the ocean. Now that we've added that, we can go on to that next step and we can throw in the trees that we want. So I'll go ahead and just type in tree. And there's a lot of different trees that we can choose from. I think the best ones are going to be ones like these wide trees. There's also these swamp trees. I'm going to zoom in real quick and you're going to notice that it has these nice roots at the bottom of it that are exposed. It's exactly how mangrove trees are like. They have kind of their roots. And so we'll use these ones. This will be a good choice. And what we'll do is we'll start with them on land and then moving towards the ocean. So let's go ahead and set that scale. I'm going to have it big enough to where it's not blurry. I'm going to go up a layer and let's go place a couple. The way that you do this is that you'll place a couple in clusters like this, maybe a big cluster here, and then place one random one here, a couple here, place another one here. This looks good. And then once we've kind of moved our way, then we'll start going into the water. So I'll kind of have them separated from each other a little bit. Have one here, maybe put some randos over here, some randos here, one over here. That looks good. Let's also place some up here on the elevation. There we go. That looks good. All right, that looks good. All right. Yes. All right, let's go and do a little trick here. What we're also going to do, just to show that, because right here, there's hardly a difference between the transition of the tree in the water and the water beneath it. So let's do some things to make that a little bit more interesting. There's a couple ways that we could go about doing this. We could use object shadows or textures to create some form of transition. And the way that I would do it is a couple ways. Is you could use shadow. So custom object shadow. We're going to use white or maybe a darker or a lighter color blue, whichever one works best. We'll bring that shadow down. There we go. We'll go ahead and change that verticality a little bit. Let's go ahead and change that. Let's also go with a little bit more into the green. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Let's go ahead and move these up a little bit so they're not going off a little bit. But you notice what that transition does right there. It kind of creates this illusion that there's a little bit of transition, a little bit of shallow water right underneath of those trees, right? Just like when the water gets a little bit shallower, light can penetrate it faster, right? But the deeper the water gets, then the longer that it takes, and therefore it gets a little bit darker. So when you want to show shallow water and dark and deep water, you're going to use contrast again. Light water textures equals shallows. Deep or depth is darker. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you how that works. So let's go ahead and place these here. And then we'll go ahead and use that same texture again for the water. We'll bring that brightness down a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and just paint. The further we get away from the thing here, the darker this section is going to get. So the further we get away, the deeper this water is going to get, right? So you get the overall idea how that works. Put some there we go, just to show some transition. There we go, much better. All right, and you could do the same thing with the shoreline. We'll go ahead and make it a little bit brightness, bring the brightness up a little bit. There we go. I'll bring my size down. And then right along here, I'll just go ahead and paint in a shallower variation right here like this, just to show some shallow. So remember, the trick here really to show that depth is to use light and dark contrasts to make it pop out more. And then we'll just go ahead and take a step back and look at it and see how it kind of comes together, right? And there's still a lot of open kind of terrain here. It seems still a little like there's more that could be added to here. So let's go ahead and do a couple things to make this more interesting. The first thing that we can do is we can maybe create some contrast using light and dark, with the open areas being a little bit lighter and the closed area being a little bit darker. So let's go do this trick. We're going to go ahead and take a grass texture. This is a little bit lighter here. Why don't we switch our brush over to dirt? Is that the right one? Let's switch it. Let's go with dirt. There we go. And right where you see open spaces, that's where I'm going to paint in this lighter grass color. So right where you see these lighter variations, you can do that. If you don't like green variation, you can use a brown type of color. Check this out. I'll go ahead and undo this real quick, and I'll show you this. In fact, I think the brown or the more yellower color might actually work better here. Let's do that. Let's see here. I want to use, let's try using beige desert. No, let's go with beige land. I think that should work best. There we go. Have our brush. Wherever you see open spaces, think of it as like a game of operation, right? You don't want to accidentally touch where the bushes are, just those negative spaces. So I'm going to paint in this color, this texture, in these open spaces without touching the trees themselves. Just like this. I'll just kind of paint in these areas with this lighter color here. There we go. That looks good. Just those open spaces. Just like that. There we go. In fact, why don't we do a lighter variation? There we go. That looks a little bit better. Lighter variation here. There we go. That looks good. Another lighter variation here. There we go. All right. Same thing up here. There we go. Open spaces there. That's going to create some contrast. And the last part is you can use, again, that dry grass texture. Let's go with grass. Not dry grass, sorry, your grass patches here. Don't forget to change that scale. And then wherever the trees are, paint that grass. Let's go to 100% actually. Paint that grass just right underneath those trees. Just like that, underneath. Really get those grass elements right into underneath where those trees are at. There we go, underneath this one. There we go, this one. All right, there we go. Remember, overlay textures are your friend. You're going to do a lot more work. You're going to do a lot less work when you use these instead of having to blend 50 textures together. These overlay textures kind of do the blending for you because all they have are the artifacts that support this transparency. So it will look a lot more interesting when you add that. There we go. All right, let's take a step back. There you go. There's our mangrove forest, showing, don't forget, that elevation change. The further you go from the ocean, the higher up it goes. While the closer you get to the ocean, the lower that it goes. And we showed that extra sense of depth by using light and shadow along this coastline here. So super important that we're doing that. All right,